Welcome into 5 Wide Fantasy. Today's video looking at the must-start players in Week 14 of the fantasy football season here on OwnersBox. Help you look at some of the best players to start in DFS contests this week, as well as players you should probably look to play in your season-long leagues as well, the final week of the regular season. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel as well if you enjoyed. Almost at 20,000 subs. We're like 400 away from 20,000. So if you could help us get there, would greatly appreciate it. And as well, if you support the channel, if you love what we do go sign up at OwnersBox. That link is down below in the description. We're gonna give you a free entry into the DFS contest, a free entry into our new Lightning Lineups game. If you haven't played that yet this season, get on there. Free promo code with Lightning10. And as well, you deposit, we're going to match it up to 100%, up to $500. So go sign up at the link below. Would greatly appreciate it. Let's get into Week 14, starting with, obviously we usually start with the quarterback position, but we'll go through some of these matchups and where I see some places to exploit. So starting with Eagles, Giants, looking at the run games for both sides here. The Browns have always had the Bengals number for quite a while now. So it is an advantageous matchup for the Bengals ground game here. And overall, it could be an advantageous matchup. But again, they've struggled against the Browns quite a bit lately. The Titans-Jags game, we're looking at an opportunity for the Jags passing offense to see some high volume that we could go to. And then the Cowboys and Texans, of course, looking to the Cowboys ground attack to take advantage of a poor Houston run defense. Ravens-Steelers, not a ton to look at here. Tyler Huntley being a quarterback definitely provides some intrigue. I don't expect Lamar Jackson to play. Jets-Bills, a competitive game. Some always good to pay attention to the weather in Buffalo. Vikings-Lions, one that's indoors. Expect a lot of points here that we could take advantage of. Chiefs-Broncos, one here that's a little bit more difficult to find an edge on. I think the Chiefs be in control of this game, which could lead to some passing volume for the Broncos to take advantage of. Seahawks-Panthers, another game on the ground I'm looking for Carolina to take advantage of a Seattle defense that's been brutal against the run. And then closing things out with Bucks 49ers, which should be a competitive one, but you should see plenty of passing volume from the Bucks you might look to here. So let's look at a quarterback to start. As I get through some of these options, the big one that sticks out and definitely isn't appropriately priced right now is Tyler Huntley. Looking at him before we got on here, $6K. I mean, Huntley is definitely someone to look to at $6,000 this week. Being in that matchup against the Steelers, who've been middle of the pack against fantasy quarterbacks, but we know from talking about it on the waiver wire video, Huntley has a very high rushing floor. Last season in his 5 games he started, he didn't have none of the games he had less than 40 rushing yards. So an opportunity to give you a great floor at the quarterback position at a really cheap price. Like he's priced around Ryan Tannehill, Daniel Jones, Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett. So Huntley's where I'm going to start here. I don't really, like I mentioned, I think his running game gives us a good floor. Wide receivers against the Steelers, they're dead last in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, so you could look to a Demarcus Robinson, a Devin Duvernay, maybe even a Mark Andrews. Right now I'm going to start without stacking him. That's not typically what I do, but I am going to start with that, and maybe I'll go to one of those guys. But I do think Huntley has the opportunity to give a great rushing floor. I'm not as sure on going to one of those wide receivers in a big game for one of them. Looking at the other quarterback spots, one that sticks out to me is Tom Brady against the 49ers. The Niners have an elite run defense. The Bucs can't run the ball. You could see Brady throwing the ball 50-plus times in this game against this 49ers team because of the fact that they're going to need to lean on the air quite a bit here. So he's definitely an option. I mentioned Lawrence in an opportunity against the Titans in a plus matchup for their passing game as someone you could go to. A few others near the top here that would stick out. We've got, honestly, from the quarterbacks, Joe Burrow, someone to go back to potentially. I'm not loving the Mahomes matchup against Denver. Allen and Hurts are in matchups, I think, that for Hurts better for the run game, and then for Allen, the Jets are a really tough pass defense to go against. So I think, one of my favorites here. Some other good options, definitely Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff, but I am going to go to Brady. I think the passing volume is going to be high for him, and then I'm going to go and pair him with Chris Godwin. Godwin's volume has been elite lately. Evans hasn't been as much so, and that's because of this offensive line that hasn't been great in protection, so they've gone to more of these intermediate routes as opposed to pushing the ball downfield to Evans. So I'm going to grab Godwin for the volume that he can provide for me, and obviously the potential to find the end zone as well. So let's go to running back next. Running back, I'm looking at, I always like to start with some of these cheaper options. Who's available at that lower price? We still have a low price here on James Cook. We still have a low price here on Kareem Hunt. those are definitely some potential players. DJ Dallas priced relatively low at 4,800. Chuba Hubbard in a really plus matchup against the Seahawks. We did see him come close to, but not quite evening up with Deonta Foreman in terms of touches. So he could be a sneaky play at $4,800 this week. Definitely someone to look to, but I would rather go Foreman. Foreman 5,300, only 500 more. He has the more clear number one role. He's been efficient. He's been good in that role too. And against the Seahawks, I believe they're 25th in fantasy points allowed to running backs. Definitely a plus matchup for him. So I like Foreman at a really cheap price this week at 5,300. Definitely want to go there. I mentioned the Cowboys in that really plus matchup against Houston, dead last in fantasy points allowed to running backs. One player I do want to go to, though, Saquon Barkley. I think this Giants team will have a very, very difficult time running or throwing the ball against the Eagles secondary and pass rush. So I would expect this team to put Saquon Barkley into an opportunity here where he's probably going to have 25 plus touches, and the Eagles have not been great against the run. Here's an opportunity for Barkley to give us that big week. He's kind of been missing the last few weeks. He hasn't had that explosive week since early in the season. I think this is an opportunity for him to do that. So filling out the 2 running back spots. I'll go to tight end next. You know, if you look at some of the top options, I do think Andrews has a plus matchup against Pittsburgh. Kelsey, not as much. Look at TJ Hawkinson. It's a competitive room there. In competitive group of pass catchers in Minnesota, I'm not really looking his way. You know, Freiermuth has given us great volume or a great floor week in and week out. He's someone you could go to. But really the one that sticks out to me is Greg Dulcich. I mentioned how good of a matchup this is for Dulcich in the potential that they miss both Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. We talked about that in the waiver wire video and adding Dulcich. I'm going to go and double down on this as him as a fantastic waiver wire ad this week, but also a fantastic guy to play coming off a solid week last week where he posted, I think, 6 receptions and 76 yards or so, 78 yards. So I definitely like Dulcich, and I do want to play him this week too. But some other options, Evan Ingram could certainly be one. We're looking at some of these guys down here aren't as much. Like Cade Otton, if Cameron Brate continues to be out, could be someone you play. Like I mentioned, the Bucs could have some high pass volume in this game, so someone you could consider there as well. And then I guess it'd be reminiscent not to mention Seattle. Seattle's dead last in fantasy points allowed against tight ends. So Ian Thomas could be someone if you're really looking to spend up on the premier players at these other positions. You can go really low with Thomas, save an extra, $400 here, and be able to push at one of these other positions. But I do like Dulcich. I think he can give you like a serviceable wide receiver 3, back end wide receiver 2 type numbers from the tight end spot this week. Okay, so I've got one more wide receiver spot and 2 flex spots to fill. Let's start at wide receiver. We obviously have about 5,100 here to work with, so I'll start with some of these lower priced options and then work my way from there. You know, Robert Woods, with the likelihood of Treylon Burks with his concussion missing this week, him and Nick Westbrook-Ikine, I think are decent options to go to because I do expect this Tennessee team to take advantage of the fact that the Jags have a really poor secondary. So we do have the potential for some big plays with those two. Nick Westbrook-Ikine, I believe, is a fair bit cheaper. Let me look him up. Yeah, he's at 4,500, so pretty good price there for me to save some of my salary to be able to grab some of these bigger players. And there was someone else I wanted to mention here. Elijah Moore. So Elijah Moore is priced at 4,200. I think that's priced more towards the player he was a few weeks ago and has been for the last 6 weeks, but he's not. He didn't get the price bump from that route participation we talked about in the waiver wire video. He's out on the field finally for over 73% route participation last week. Major difference from what we've seen in the last 5 or 6 weeks. He's finally on the field. He didn't hit any big plays. I think he only had did he even have a reception? Maybe he had 1 or 2 receptions. He's in that slot role. I love Moore at 4,200, a really cheap price, and someone that's being overlooked right now in a matchup against Buffalo. The potential in a trailing game script to be able to hit a few plays, maybe find the end zone. So I really like getting Elijah Moore at his price. So now we're sitting at 5,600 with the remaining salary. Definitely leaves us with some options. If I'm looking at some of these top guys and who I would want to play there, obviously Jefferson would be a really solid play against against Detroit, definitely a plus matchup there. Amon-Ra St. Brown. We saw Jamar Chase make his return last week. He definitely stuck out as someone that's not going to miss a beat now returning from injury. He was very good, very solid. I'm gonna start with Jefferson. Because the Vikings are underdogs in this matchup in Detroit. That could leave the potential for this team to be leaning on the pass game quite a bit. They already do as is, but here in the potential of a trailing game script could make Jefferson, exploiting what is a Lions secondary that does not have much talent to be able to compete with him. And they play a lot of man coverage, so Jefferson could take advantage of that. So that leaves me with 4K. That won't leave me with a lot of wiggle room here, but let's at least look and see who's available at 4K. Kendall Hinton, if both Sutton and Judy are out, it looks like Judy will be fine and be able to play, but there's some potential there. We saw Isaiah Hodgins see a bit more routes, but again, I don't want to go against that defense of the Eagles secondary. Man, Sky Moore, too tough of a matchup in my mind. David Bell. Yeah, not much here that I would really push to. I don't think any of these guys will provide me with much. We obviously saw Scotty Miller out there a little bit, but last week, but I don't think that's enough for me to want to play him. So let's take Jefferson out here, and let me just look at some of these other options that are like 4,500. Who could I grab there? Richie James, Julio. Oh, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Yeah, he would be in a perfect spot there. Let's go Westbrook-Ikhine. 4,500. I like I mentioned, if Burks is out, this team will still lean on the ground game, but the Jags do not have a very good pass defense and have been better against the run than the pass. So if they are slowing Derrick Henry down, who hasn't really been very good the last few weeks efficiency-wise, the pass game could be where this team takes advantage and where they find the end zone. So I'm looking for Westbrook-Ikhine, who led the team in routes run last week, to potentially hit a big play as well. So that leaves me with 6,700. Hard to leave Amon-Ra St. Brown off the team right now. We would have him and Godwin would definitely be two players that are a little bit more volume dependent than touchdown. And really, if you want to take home the grand prize here, the best way to do that and the 10K here is going to be with someone who can find the end zone a few times. Now, St. Brown found the end zone twice last week, so not to say he couldn't do that here, but let me just see if we could. What is Godwin at 63? No, we want to go. Yeah, I'm gonna go Amon-Ra St. Brown. We know he got great volume from him, a great floor, and then if he continues to be as good as he's been with a matchup against Minnesota, who's really good against the run but pretty poor against the pass, we could see another big game from St. Brown. He's looking like a guy that's going to win your league back-to-back years, honestly. So, all right, let's run through who we've got here. At quarterback, Tyler Huntley. Didn't stack him with anyone. I think his rushing upside is where I'm relying on him here. Then I'm going Tom Brady and Chris Godwin stack. The Bucs will need to throw the ball quite a bit in this game against San Francisco's run defense. And then we've got Deontay Foreman and Saquon Barkley at running back, two teams with very plus matchups against the run, and two teams that do want to run the ball, especially for Carolina since the change at head coach. They've gotten a lot more run happy. Then we have Elijah Moore, who hasn't gotten a price bump despite the fact he's on the field 4 times as much last week as he was during a typical week the last 5 weeks. Then we have Greg Dulcich at tight end, who I've mentioned, and then Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Amon-Ra St. Brown at the flex spots, which we just talked about. All right, again, if you guys are looking to get in the contest, the add promo code button is right here, top right corner. If you use promo code DFS10, you can get into any $10 contest on the platform right now. As well, promo code Lightning10 if you want to test out Lightning lineups. That link to sign up for OwnersBox is down below in the description. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, help us get to 20K before the end of the year. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.